Hey, friends. This is Martine Williams, and I am obsessed with all things mompreneur life and helping you to remix your priorities, your habits, your mindsets, and yes, even your relationships so that you can build a successful business without losing yourself in the process. I'm also obsessed with the color turquoise and lyrics of the 80s and 90s, but that's beside the point. Girlfriend, you don't have to hustle 24/7, 365 and continue to sacrifice your health, your relationships, and your sanity to be a successful mompreneur. As a small town girl living in a lonely world to a six-figure mompreneur, I am here to teach you how. There is a better way, and this podcast is your one-stop shop for all of the how-tos, the encouragement, the life hacks, the success tips, and of course, a little side of tough love. This is the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. So let's do this. Hey friends, you are going to be so inspired and encouraged by this episode. I have a turquoise talk guest, Jen from Becoming Iconic. And I don't know, it was just a refreshing business conversation around sales, around finding harmony between your life and your business. So I know you're going to enjoy it as much as I enjoyed meeting Jen. So let me tell you just a little bit about her. She has created a multi-million-dollar global iconic brand for life, business, and leadership. As the owner and founder of Becoming Iconic, Jen is infusing years of wisdom, pure, clean energy, and proven strategies for the visionaries, legends, and entrepreneurs who want to break expired paradigms and shift the narrative within their businesses, relationships, and lives. As an industry leader, top mentor, and podcast host, be ready for Jen to expand you into your full potential as the most epic, vision-centric leader for yourself and your legacy. So without further ado, here's Jen. Welcome back, friends, to the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. I am so excited for another amazing turquoise talk guest. I just love being able to interview others and being able to hear their stories of inspiration, their stories of struggle and vulnerability. And so I just want to say thank you so much to Jen from Becoming Iconic for coming on the show today and just having a casual conversation with us.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks again.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about you, your family, and how you became and why you became a mompreneur.
Yes, this is years ago. I've been an entrepreneur for 17 years. I'm now a mom of 4. When I started my entrepreneurial experience, I had 2 and they were little babies. And I gave up my marketing career to be home with kids because at that point in my life, I literally thought you had to choose. I had never witnessed a woman doing both. And if they were doing both with a lot of resentment, feeling like they were torn all the time. So it didn't really look very appealing to me. So I made the decision to stay home and leave my career because they did take precedence. Although I loved my job and I was highly successful in my job, that was a big choice, but it was the right choice. Mm-hmm. And as I was home with them, I quickly lost who I was, the essence of Jen as a human being, as a woman. I was very young. I was 24 years old. And so being 24 at home, I became the sweatpant mom. I never really got dressed anymore. My biggest, most thrilling thing was to go to a spin class at the gym once a day and have my kids looked after while I could do something for myself. And it really started to wear on my heart and my spirit. And I just didn't think you could do both until I found entrepreneurship. I had never been around entrepreneurship. Both my parents were teachers. And so that was a foreign world for me. I'd never witnessed somebody be successful in that way. And once I caught wind of being able to build something at home while being with your kids and being able to harmonize those two worlds, I was all in. So I really jumped in completely naive. You know, they say ignorance on fire. That was definitely me, but it worked. Yeah, it worked. And I've never looked back. I actually feel like I'm unemployable at this point because it's just such a beautiful existence as a mom and as a woman. I really feel like I've eradicated this idea that we have to sacrifice anything in order to be all that we can be. And I hope that I'm a living example of that for other women.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you said it was the right choice. And, as we're in this new year. There may be someone who's listening that's like, I'm feeling some of the same things that you felt, and I'm in corporate America, or I'm trying to, to do both. But how do you know it's the right decision? And how do you know when it's time to make that decision? Because that's a really hard place to be in that transition,
Yeah, it is. And I don't know if we're ever really sure. And I think this is the biggest thing that holds us back is we wait for the feeling first. Once I feel confident or once I feel sure of this idea, then I'll take the leap.
Right.
And so what we end up doing is standing in the sidelines for our entire life, hoping and waiting for that feeling of assurance to hit us. But that comes by actioning and trying things and taking risk. And the biggest other component to that is guilt. I feel like as women, we've been raised to feel guilt and probably wallow in guilt more than we should, if I can use the word should. I don't love to use that word, but I do feel like we can do a much better job. And so one of the biggest overcomings I had to have once I made that bold action to just say, if not now, then when? And what's my worst case scenario? It doesn't work out. Nothing is permanent in life. I can find another job. You can pivot. I think we make things so big in our minds, and it's really not that big of a deal. It is a big deal, but it's not detrimental. And then the next overcoming was that guilt. You start to feel guilty when you're working on your business that, oh my goodness, maybe I should be spending more time with my family. And then when you're with your family, like, oh my goodness, maybe I should be working on my business. So that's that next layer. Once you take that leap, it's just to prepare the people listening in that this is probably going to be part of your experience. And so it's navigating that. And I have lots of strategy around that, but it's definitely been something that I work through and work through with lots of my clients.
Yeah, mom guilt is huge. And that is definitely something that I try to talk and ask different, entrepreneurs and mompreneurs on the show. Like, how have you dealt with mom guilt? Because no matter where you're at in your journey, there's at some point you're going to feel it. Right. And for some people it's a daily battle, depending on the season of life and the business that they're in. When my kids were little, it's interesting how the father can go and leave the home and be gone for the same amount of hours that I'm working from home, but they see us and they're like, oh, mom's supposed to be my playmate, 24/7 or whenever I want to play. And there's so much. Now I'm on the other side. My kids are older now, and I'm actually like, can you spend a little bit more time with me? But for the mom that's listening that does have the littles, or even if her kids are older and she's just really struggling internally, it's not something maybe the kids are putting on her. It's just that internal feeling like I should be doing more. Like you said, that word should. I don't really love that word either. So what would you say? What are some of your strategies on mom guilt?
Well, first of all, it's to recognize the feeling. And then the best way to eradicate self-limiting beliefs is to ask ourselves, is this in fact true?
True. Mm-hmm.
It's one of my favorite questions to ask myself because it kind of shakes me out of the feelings that don't serve me. So when I'm starting to feel like, oh gosh, I'm on my phone a lot and I'm really distracted because business is going really well. It's what we all want. Like we don't want it where it's crickets over here in our business. So be careful what we wish for. I have to catch myself sometimes. Even the other day, I said to my husband, oh my gosh, like I just feel like I need some quiet. And I was like, delete. I don't want that. That's not what I want to manifest in my life. It's just, I got to do a better job of managing the different roles that I have. But when I ask myself, is this in fact true that I'm taking away from my family to build this business? The answer is always no, because if you're a mompreneur, the core of everything we do is to bless our children. So we bless our children by stepping up into leadership and being an example for them in the home. We bless them by giving them experiences and memories because we can afford to take family vacations. They can do the different extracurricular activities they want to do. We bless our partners because they don't have to hold the weight of all of that financial sort of output. We are equal in that way. And I love that. So when I look at it that way, it's like, okay, this isn't true. So that doesn't necessarily take the guilt away, but it starts to remove it. And then I ask myself the next question, what is true? I'm doing this for them. Yeah. And they do all these things. I list the things that they are being blessed with as a result of me stepping into this business and leading it. And all of a sudden you start to like roll your shoulders back and lift your chin up and see things for what is in fact your reality, not these narratives or tentacles to sort of expired beliefs. And it's truly to me the best way to eradicate that feeling.
Yeah. I love that. I know someone is writing copious notes right now on that, because that's maybe one of their goals for this year is to really kind of stand in staying in that belief system and what is the fact, and not just basing every decision and everything they do on feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing that I know from my coaching clients, and I'm sure you've experienced it as well, is this imposter syndrome or self-sabotage that goes on as an entrepreneur when you're trying to build a business, especially if they're in that transition or if they're very new in the business. But honestly, I feel like at every level, when you're up leveling, whether you're a beginner or you're trying to go to that next level in your business or in your life, there's always this like little voice that's telling you you're not worthy, or you're not enough. Or so for those of you that are listening right now and are dealing with that, I'd love to hear, Jen, what you have to say about imposter syndrome, self-sabotage, all of those things that happen.
I have such an affection for imposter syndrome now. Can you imagine? Like, I'm sure people are going, what? And I just wrote a post about this because I've really embraced that feeling, because what it tells me is I'm doing something new and I'm stretching into something new. I'm asking more of myself. I'm being vulnerable. And this to me is a life worth living. If I'm comfortable, I'm probably leaning on yesterday's successes. I'm probably complacent in my growth, my personal growth and leadership. And I'm in that comfort, which can feel good. But what ends up happening on the other side of that is 5-10 years from now, we're in the same place doing the same thing and realize, oh my goodness, what could I have done if I took some of those risks or pivots or shifts or tried something new? So I really do try to teach imposter syndrome is a great indicator for doing incredible, radical, bold things in your life. So when you feel that, it's like, oh, it's there. It doesn't have to hold me back. As a matter of fact, it's just showing me that I'm doing something that I've never done before. So let's applaud that.
Right.
And you're going to have shaky knees. And that's very true. What you just said, that never goes away.
Yeah.
You think, once I hit these marker moments, like $100,000 month or 7-figure business, I'm just going to be, smooth sailing and put my feet back and coast. And I think, oh, with more becomes more responsibility.
Yeah.
We cannot sugarcoat that.
Yeah.
So it's not that those things go away. What I believe happens in life and with maturity in business is you just learn to navigate those waters in a more expedited way. So when these things pop up, you don't wallow and sit in it for days upon days or weeks or months. Instead, you recognize it. You're like, I know the tools to work through this. You apply it, and then it's behind you.
Yeah.
Self-sabotage. Ooh, self-sabotage. Oh, I wish I could master that one. I mean, I guess it's a part of our human experience, these things we're going to do to hold ourselves back because of, still of the healing. It's just those blind spots start to show up of those areas that still require attention, healing, discussion, forgiveness. And so those areas to me, when they show up and I find myself in self-sabotage, because I do, and nobody's excluded from that. So don't let anybody ever tell you they are. Again, it's that way of moving through it. But at the same time, it always shows me like there's more work to do over here. So it's just that those mirror moments, and not to judge ourselves on, because we do a lot of judging, and instead just be in a point of reflection and love and care for ourselves, and often forgiveness of ourselves. If you've gone through self-sabotage, you sabotaged, maybe it was a sales call with a client and you're like, oh my gosh, I really didn't show up in my personal power in that. Maybe it's sabotage with health. Right. I said I wasn't going to watch Netflix and drink wine every night, but I'm still doing that. Rather than beat ourselves up over that, it's like shifting into something new. And the best way I know how to do that is to change habits. So if you're in a habitual behavior of sitting down, watching Netflix and drinking wine and feeling yucky the next day and having brain fog, instead, could you pour yourself a cup of tea, go into your bedroom and open up a book? So change the habit. Yeah. If for you, it's on a sales call, you see yourself kind of shrink and get nervous and worry that maybe they're not going to sign up or see my value or my worth. So you almost sabotage that conversation. Can you put on a song before you show up? Can you do a call with your coach or drop into Voxer and have some coaching to elevate? What can you do to support yourself to do things differently? But it is a lifelong journey.
It is. And the two things that really stood out to me and what you said about both imposter syndrome and self-sabotage was number one, the perception of both of those, and how you see them is how you respond to them.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was just, it's so important to have those people in our life, like a coach or a mentor or an accountability partner or someone who sees the truth, because we are so critical of ourselves, and to have someone that can, like you said, you can do a Voxer with to say, hey, I'm getting ready to get on this call. I'm super nervous. This is what I'm feeling. And they can really just bring you back to reality of it's not going to be the end of the world, and you're amazing and you have such value. And we just need those reminders.
Yeah,
and there's so many solopreneurs out there that are just trying to figure out life and business on their own. I just don't believe we were designed to be alone. And you have podcasts that are free for anyone to listen to, but there's also a point in time where investing in yourself by hiring a coach or a mentor program, the right ones to help you. So yeah, that was really good. Perception and community. That's kind of what I heard.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And then just one caveat to that is picking your community of people who will give you truth. You mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important because a lot of people pick comfortable accountability partners. So those ones that are like, me too, I'm not selling either. Or, it's Mercury retrograde. That's why, or whatever they're pinpointing and allowing you to live in your excuses. Instead, it's that person that's going to say, I hear you. I feel you, but how can we turn this around? How can we make this better? So you want someone that's going to pull you out of it. Be really careful about that, because it's really easy to be in those relationships with people who let you wallow in it alongside of them, because misery loves company.
Yes.
So we got to be very careful about who we choose.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that you talk about is living in pleasure and joy, to like how living in pleasure and joy today can give you financial and emotional abundance. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I love the word pleasure. And back in 2021, I would have equivalated to that as some sort of sensual, sexual word, because I hadn't really spent a lot of time thinking about it.
Right.
And it was actually a mentor that had said something about that to me. And it really triggered me, because I thought, oh my goodness, why are we talking about that? I'm talking about business. But this was my lack of vision of what pleasure was. And so I gave myself a little bit of a challenge. And I thought, how can I bring pleasure into my life every single day? And that often for me comes through beauty. So if you were to see my desk right now, I have candles lit. I have crystals. If you walked into my living room, my house is tidy. It's welcoming. I love pouring coffee into beautiful coffee cups and sipping it and savoring my coffee versus rushing it down or not finishing it all and putting in the microwave 5 or 6 times before you finish it. I love to get up early and have time alone so that I get that space to be with myself and set myself up for the day. I love to hold hands with my husband and be really intentional around those types of things, cuddling with my kids at night. And it's like those intentional moments where you pause. It's like the term stop and smell the roses. It's how can you invite that in today? Most people wait to buy fresh flowers when they start to make more money. It's like, well, once I make more money, then I'll get weekly flowers. What if those weekly flowers reminded you of who you wanted to be and how you wanted to live, and were an activator for you as you sat down on your desk to be like, okay, the presence of me is slightly different because I have these beautiful things around me. I've curated this space that elevates me as a person. And so that has nothing to do really with how much income you're creating or have. It has everything to do with intention. And to me, every single person I've met and been mentored by who is living these exceptional, fulfilling lives, they do those things for themselves. Everything is thoughtful.
Right. Yeah.
And that's how I would encourage everybody to live.
Yeah. And it's just taking the time to slow down and just think about what are those things. It's not what's right for you. It may not be the candles and the beautiful coffee cups, but what is it for each one of you that are listening today that can help you in that area, help you create those spaces that help you to show up in a more joyful and abundant and just the right mindset. And so I think we just get caught, like you said, rushing through life, and rushing through the day and not stopping, like you said, to smell the roses or even figure out, do we even like roses? Maybe you don't like roses. I'm a lily girl. I love the smell of the lilies. And so I always have those, or not always, but I like to. And I've gotten to where I realized I like actually putting floral arrangements together, which is so weird because I'm not a creative person typically, but it just brings me joy to do it. I'm like, why am I waiting on someone else to bring me flowers? I just need to go and get them and put them together. Even as like a little mason jar, I put it together. It's on my desk. So I love that. I think that was a really good point. Because environment is important, especially as a mompreneur who's working in your office and you're probably not leaving home. Your environment is super important. So I love the thought of sales led with soul. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I could talk a lot about that because I have a beef with what has been taught and some of these old paradigms that are no longer working and are, as a matter of fact, hurting people, not only the person selling, but the people they're selling to. And we can do so much better. And the really neat thing to take into consideration is that I'm going to offer this advice. And it's going to feel like really different, awkward, maybe in some ways, but it's the very thing we all want to feel. Like we all want to feel open, available, confident, poised when we're selling. Everybody wants to feel that way. Nobody wants to feel like, oh, maybe I should slash my prices, or maybe I should give a deal, or all these things that get in the way. And that energy that we're putting out into the world is not pure energy. I think selling is incredible. It is the most beautiful exchange. I find it an honor every single time I get to have that exchange with someone, because not only do I get to hold space for that person, but I get to witness them say yes to themselves. When somebody on the other side of a sale, and if you're an entrepreneur, you're selling something, whatever that may be.
Right.
When someone says yes to themselves, that is a divine, beautiful moment for that person, because saying yes to ourselves means there was a spark of belief. Like, if I do this, maybe this can actually happen, or I can create this, or I could become this. And we need to hold space for that and get out of the way of somebody doing that for themselves. Soul-led sales also means that when someone says no, we respect the no, that we no longer try to convince or coerce or have this sort of codependent relationship with people that we are in relationship with. Soul-led sales means I'm going to do my very best job to tell you why I believe this program, this service, this product would serve and benefit you. Right. I'm going to do that in a pure way with conviction and knowledge, and I'm going to hold my energy. And then on the other side, I'm going to be respectful of your answer.
Right.
It also holds us accountable to take away this whole pain point selling. I'm known for talking about this. I have for years. It's catching on now, thank God. The pain point selling was one of the worst things we could have ever participated in. And I did. So I'm not saying that I was immune to this. Right. I did it for a little while. When I first started entrepreneurship, I was taught that. I said, you list on your website, if you feel this is what I will help you with. And it never felt correct. It's like, I know everybody's telling me to do this, but it just doesn't feel right. And I had this realization that I do not want you buying from me because you think I can fix you, or you're buying from me because I made you feel more of an emotion around how you're currently feeling. You are laying awake at night already thinking that you need to create more income. I don't need to remind you of that in order for you to come into my world and be served. You are laying awake at night thinking, I wish I could, release some of the weight that I've gained. You're already thinking of those things. So why would I sell to you in that way, being like, you want to lose weight? You want to feel good in a bathing suit? You want that already. So what if instead I shared with you solutions? What if instead I cast vision? And it sounds more like, what would it feel like? What would you do if you had an extra $10,000 in your bank account? Or how would it feel to be so confident in your skin that you showed up to more events and created more memories with your family? That's what she wants, or he wants.
Right.
So let's come from that place of casting vision and showing what's possible versus rubbing salt in her already existing wound in order to make a sale. And that's empowered selling, because you're empowered and so is she or he. And you come together in that way. And that's what makes lifelong clients.
I mean, someone literally just was so freed that's in sales and that's trying to follow all of these different models. And I've been in so many, I'm not so many, but I've been in programs and I've been in sales for, 15, 16 years now. And I have seen all the different, tactics or ways of selling. And I literally just am 100% in alignment with what you just said. I think it's amazing. And I think it needs to be talked about more. And like I said, someone listening today, really, I think you just got freed from the sales cycle of pain point, push, coerce, convince, get into their emotions, like all of that. And just the responsibility to fix them. That's a huge responsibility you're putting on yourself by marketing in that way. So yeah, let's all take a deep breath. There are other ways, right? There's other ways.
And, sorry. Yes, I don't mean to interrupt. I apologize. Yep. Yeah. And the other thing too is we get to be more, I guess we see things a little bit more clearly as the buyer too, as we have this discussion. Mm-hmm. So right now, so many people are, putting up their balloons that they've had, $5 million day, and that's how they're selling. And I get it. I think it's amazing that people are showing what's possible. I very rarely talk about my income because it has nothing to do with anything. I mean, what has to do with me is, are you getting a result? Do you feel seen? Do you feel supported? Is there a great relationship being cultivated? That matters. And, yes, sure, income does show what's possible, but if I ever hold balloons and do that, I mean, I'm expecting everybody to come and in the DMs and tell me off, because doing these things. Yeah. And there's this underlying manipulation. So be smart as the buyer. Does that speak to you? Is that your personality? Does that feel good in your body? Mm-hmm. Or are you feeling a soul connection to someone where it's like, oh my gosh, I love how they show up. I love how they, teach. I love what they stand for. I love how they're showing up in their lives. That's an informed decision versus these emotional sort of hypey decisions of, if I'm with her, she's guaranteeing by the end of this mastermind, I'm going to be making 6 figures. Nobody can guarantee you that. And as a matter of fact, it's hurtful to the entire coaching industry, because then people aren't getting that result, which makes them say that coaches don't work, and so on and so forth. So we've got to be really responsible, not only by the person selling, but the buyer. If you are a potential client of someone, you've got to tap in and say, are our values aligned? Do I feel good in this person's presence? Do I feel elevated and like, oh gosh, I'd love to show up like this? And if that's how you feel, that will be an empowered yes. If you're with that person and feeling like, oh my goodness, they're intimidating, but they're just so loud, and that's the way you're making a decision, I would ask you just to pause for a second. It doesn't mean that's wrong, but just pause and make a good decision for yourself, because that ends up being happy money, and happy money circulating in the world is just going to create more wealth for women. And that's what I stand behind. Yeah. Yeah. And I do think that women struggle more than men in the sales department. Like, we don't have as much confidence in the selling conversation. And maybe it is because of old habits or old ways of teaching. And I don't know. I mean, do you find that with women that you work with, that this is like, they have this beautiful product or they have this amazing value to offer? Number one, they don't see it in themselves. And number two, they don't know how to talk about it in a way that feels good to them. And I mean, I think it holds a lot of mompreneurs back. I mean, when I'm coaching, that's like the number one thing is the selling part. They just have a hard time. And I struggled with it. I mean, being 100% honest. I mean, when I started my businesses years ago, I mean, I was like, I don't want to be that person. Everybody thinks I'm just going to like throw up my product information to them every time they see me. So I had to really have some mindset shifts on what selling actually is. Would you agree with that? It's a huge problem. It is. And 2 things come up for me. Number one is we often fear sales because we had an experience with something or someone. So that created that fear of like, I don't want to be salesy. Right. Well, I always say to somebody when they say that to me, you obviously have a story. What happened? And so that fear of being like that person holds people back from selling. Well, that's a personality. And that was a circumstance. That doesn't mean everybody, and most people on this planet are selling. I mean, I sell vegetables to my kids every single day. I mean, I'm
Yes.
selling all the time. I mean, I'm selling programs to my husband. We're doing it all the time. It's not negative. It's actually really beautiful and
Right.
it's natural for us. But we've had this scenario. So be careful then to remember that that was a person and a personality. That's not sales.
Right. Yeah. That's
Second
good.
thing that comes up is the amount of ego. And people aren't going to necessarily love that I say this, but it needs to be said so that we can recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
Because people be like, I don't have an ego. I just don't want people to think I'm always selling to them. So if we pause and actually listen to that language, it's all ego-based, meaning I don't want people to not like me. I don't want to be too pushy. I don't want people to not like me and buy from me. There's a lot of I statements in that. So what we're basically saying is how people think of me is more important than this product and how I can serve others. Isn't that an interesting way to view it? And all of a sudden you're like, ooh, like, caught, guilty. So we recognize the ego, and it can be sneaky.
Yeah.
When we recognize it, we can then look at it and say, well, that's not how I actually want to live my life. I want to live my life in servant leadership. And so selling, what I need to do is get out of the way, share, and be in tune with someone's body language, the way they're communicating with me. Be mindful. If you're feeling them lean back as though they're not ready to hear about your product, let it go and move the subject along to something else.
Yeah.
And if you feel them leaning in and curious, guide the conversation. But we need to be more aware and get out of people's way. And often we stand in the way of great relationships and sales.
And we stand in the way of someone else's transformation because we're making it all about us, and how we're saying things, and if we're saying the right thing. And you're the second person just in the last couple of weeks that have talked about just the beauty of the transaction of someone making the decision that they're ready for change and they're ready to invest. But because we're insecure or whatever is the blocker there, we're keeping someone from making that next step. And when you think about it in that way, it does change how you feel about your conversations, because most people with that servant leadership or that servant's heart would never want to turn someone away from making that next decision. But when you make the sale about you and make it about the dollars you're bringing in or the balloons you're going to be able to hold up at the end of the month, then it is all about you and not about that potential customer or person that you can help. So I love that it's come up twice. So that's really, 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 really telling.
Good.
So I love two things when Abby introduced me to you that I'm like, I'm definitely going to have her on the show, was the idea of the radical responsibility, because I do talk about that a lot as well. And then the idea of harmony versus balance. So let's talk about radical personal responsibility and how that's needs to be discussed.
Yeah, this comes from my own journey of spending most of my life requiring validation outside of myself in order to feel worthy. So I would depend upon my clients saying, you're the best, or that was the best call, in order to feel like that call was great.
Oh, yeah.
It would look like my husband telling me, you look so beautiful in that dress, in order to feel beautiful in the dress. And that was, it makes me emotional even saying that stuff out loud, because I feel her still. She's still there, but we've worked on that. So that's a really hard existence. Let's just call it what it is, because we're totally dependent on other people filling our cup. And when it's not being filled by others, and even having that expectation upon others, we're depleted. We're in that self-doubt. We're in that imposter syndrome. And so for me, I had to learn what personal power actually was. I had to learn to define that. And personal power for me was taking back the power. So I no longer require my husband to tell me I look beautiful in that dress before I feel beautiful in the dress. And if I can't say that to myself, then I have some work to do. I have to look at that. What is it? What's going on here? What do we need to spend some love and give some love to? The same thing goes with my leadership. I no longer require my clients to pat me on the back in order to know that I am giving them life-changing strategy and advice and wisdom. So when you know those things, you get to take radical personal responsibility. You've taken back your power. You're no longer giving it over to others. And all of a sudden you expand. Like it's almost like it happens in real time. Your whole body changes because you've opened up and you start to recognize that the best advocate for you is yourself. And then the accountability comes in. So now I can no longer say, well, my clients aren't appreciating me the way I want to be appreciated. So maybe I'm not the best coach and all this stuff we get involved in. Instead, it's now, I'm not feeling like I'm serving to my highest potential. What needs to shift, change? What do I need to look at? How can I grow? Is this in fact true? There's my question. Like, is this in fact true? And it really does put the onus and responsibility onto ourselves. This is personal growth. Personal growth is not simply picking up a book and feeling inspired by the end.
Right.
That's a tool. Personal growth is actually that personal responsibility, doing the hard work, healing, going and finding a modality that will pull these traumas, these past experiences out so you can cleanse yourself of that, learn the lessons, find the teachers within those things so that you can apply that to your life going forward. Personal responsibility isn't easy. That's why not everybody does it. But when you do, you live a different life. Like when people say, Jen, I don't get it. How do you have 4 kids and 3 different businesses and running a podcast and a great marriage and you're traveling? And how are you doing all of this? Well, I live that kind of life because I did everything I possibly could and still do everything I possibly can to be responsible for my outcomes because ultimately I am.
Yeah.
And that's a huge shift and adjustment in life, but it is so serving. And I feel like it's the antidote to all the things that people want to have, that success, that recognition. It comes when you can recognize yourself.
Yeah. And everything else is icing on the cake. You know, I do think we put so much pressure. I know that's part of my story of even getting into entrepreneurship was, you know, my husband with lots of hobbies, very independent. I was really dependent on him to fulfill all those needs. And, you know, the white picket fence, getting married, and he's going to sweep me off my feet and we're going to live happily ever after. That was kind of my part of my story. And it wasn't until I took the personal responsibility to find it for myself. And I know that there's someone listening that's like, please ask her this question. So what was the turning point, or what was the 1 or 2 things you did to be able to feel beautiful in the dress without looking for the validation of being beautiful in the dress, or to feel like I am the coach? I don't need my clients to tell me that I'm a great coach. I know someone's listening. They're like, what are the 1 or 2 steps that she did?
Yeah. And this is not perfection. It's progression always.
Right.
I mean, I literally met with my mentor this week and said, you know, am I doing too much? Is my vision too big? Like, you know, I still have those moments. So it's not that it goes away. Again, it's the way you navigate through them. But what my turning point was feeling disappointed all the time. So I was constantly seeking love outside of myself. And then when you don't get it, you're depleted and you don't want to really do anything during your day. And I was like, this doesn't even make sense. And I'm not going to allow people to dictate my energy, how I feel about myself. So what is the only thing that I can be responsible for? It's me. So feeling beautiful in the dress. I don't always feel beautiful in the dress, but I know that I am as beautiful as I'm going to be today. Right. And, you know, I can do something different today and tomorrow moving forward, whether that's nourishment, more movement, you know, whatever that may be. But today is all I've got. It's like capturing these moments. And it's again, coming back to that pleasure and joy of how can I make this moment so beautiful, and taking myself out of the equation. So for me with coaching, it's like, what is truth? Where's the evidence? Well, the evidence shows that I have 17 years. I've helped thousands of women globally. They're all successful still. And these are facts. These are truths. So when I feel like maybe I'm not enough, I have to look at that and say, is that in fact true? Well, no. What's leading me into this? Well, you know what? I didn't get up early enough and have time with myself this morning. Yeah. And so that's leading me into my day. I'm chasing my day, which is putting me in frantic energy, which is making me feel not present. And, you know, it's this spiral effect. Yeah. So a true leader, the ones that like take our breath away, she has this peaceful confidence, and she has peaceful confidence because she does the things most people aren't willing to do. She gets up. She quiets the world. She doesn't go get her phone as soon as she wakes up. She doesn't even touch her phone. Instead, she's in prayer. She's in meditation. She's smelling, sipping, savoring her coffee. She's probably in a silk robe that feels so good on her skin. So she's in her feminine energy. She's lighting a candle for herself. She's journaling about her dreams. She's greeting her family in the morning versus chasing them, saying, come on, let's go, let's go. It's like, good morning. She's being the person she wants to become all the time.
Yeah.
Never perfectly. Again, it's progression.
Yeah. Yeah. I just totally visualized that whole scenario. So that was really good. We could talk about that forever, but I do want to just kind of touch on no such thing as balance and really learning how to create harmony, because I personally believe balance is a trap and that so many fall into. So talk a little bit about harmony and what that looks like for you. And
Well, I think balance is a trap. And I feel like the seeking of balance is the very thing that is making people feel out of balance. So it's literally the hamster wheel.
Yeah.
And I don't believe you're ever going to find it. I don't know. Find me someone who says I'm in complete balance. Everything gets equal parts of me. This kid has 1.5 hours. This one gets one. Like, nobody operates that way, nor is that even fair, because maybe one child isn't feeling well, so they require more of your attention than the other one. Like, if we lived life where everything got equal parts, we're going to miss so much of the joy and the fulfillment and the surprise and delight. So for me, I've heard people on stages say, this is how you get balance. And I think there's all these people out there wandering around trying to find balance, not feeling it. So they're constantly their own worst enemy in this joy of life.
Yeah.
Harmony to me means presence. Presence is my word for 2023. So presence to me means that as I'm with you, I am not distracted. I'm not thinking about what's for dinner or what my husband is currently doing or what client is in my Voxer. Presence is the best gift, not only for yourself, but the person you're with. It's piercing in such a beautiful way, because it's not the amount of time we give to something or people. It's the quality of that time. Yeah. It's putting your phone away. And when you're sitting on the couch with your child, even if you don't want to watch the cartoon that they're watching, and I get it, because it's like, it's like pencils in the eyeballs. Like, if I see one more YouTube video, I'm just.
It's so true.
Oh my gosh.
It's funny because it's true.
It is. And you're just like, I could rather pick up my phone and do anything else right now than watch this video. But I have to coach myself, because it's not about the video. It's my presence. It's discussion. It's things that, he or she, because I've got 2 girls, 2 boys, he or she are listening to and opening up a discussion and dialogue around those things. And I can only do that if I'm observing them and observing what, is a part of their world, this video they're currently watching. Presence in my business. Like, when I'm with a client, I never forget it. I had a mentor and she did a lot of great things for me. So it just, this one experience really, it stuck with me. I would be on Zoom calls with her, and she literally would be on her phone texting and like looking up, going, and looking down. And I remember being completely mortified. Like, this is a 30-minute call.
Right.
It's not like we're here for hours. It's 30 minutes of your time, and you're not even hearing me. And what I'm also feeling is that you don't even care what I have to say. There's something more important. Right. And I swore I would never, ever have someone in my world feel that. And so I hold myself to a high standard, and presence is the way. And when you're being present, you remove this idea of, oh my goodness, I've done too much in my business, or I've spent too much time with family, because you're doing the very thing you're being called to do in that moment. And it becomes this beautiful existence of observation and capturing moments. So that's harmony. That's harmony. And it literally eradicates balance. It makes you just go, oh, I never have to think about that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now it's beautiful. It's such a beautiful release.
Yeah, it is. And I think the more people that can really fully understand and engage and embrace the word harmony versus balance, the less burnout we'll see. Because again, they're chasing after something that's just not attainable. So like I said, when I saw that, I'm like, we're definitely going to have this conversation. She's definitely coming on the podcast. So this has been such a great great conversation. We could probably talk. You're so easy to talk to for another couple hours. But if you had the opportunity to talk to all of the mompreneurs of the world just for a couple of minutes, like what's the one thing you want to make sure they understood?
Mompreneurs, we just got God bumps all over. So this is a good one, I guess. Stop with the unnecessary urgency. Stop rushing life, rushing business, rushing your time with your kids. I have a 19-year-old all the way to an 8-year-old. And I can tell you it's such a blessing to have that 19-year-old because what she's taught me is it goes by really fast. And so that's not another layer of guilt. That's just an awareness. And there is no urgency. There isn't. What are we racing for? What are we rushing for? Why do we want overnight success? What if instead we embraced the journey? You've heard this before, but hearing it and actually believing it and being it is two different things.
Yeah.
And enjoyed today. Enjoyed getting your kids on the bus, enjoyed holding your husband's hand when you're watching TV, enjoyed the work you're doing. There will always be more. That task list as an entrepreneur is never going to go away. Let's hope it doesn't, because if it's empty, we're in trouble.
Right.
There's always going to be another thing. So let's pause, breathe, enjoy, show gratitude, observe our life be so available to all that we've already created. And that's when you can welcome more in. That's when all of a sudden you don't even have to create urgency because abundance flows into someone who is in deep gratitude and is seeing the gifts and blessings of their lives.
So good. So good. Well, let's wrap up the show. And I always like to ask just some rapid fire questions like, what's your favorite business gadget or resource or app that you're using right now in your business?
I love Voxer.
I do too.
I love Voxer.
It's been around forever, but I love it.
I love it. I love being tapped in. I love quick, sharp, beautiful conversation. I love it. I love it.
I love that it's always there and you don't have to keep like scrolling back through to find it in like a messenger app or something else, you know? Yes. I love hearing people's voices.
Me too.
I think it's really hard to convey tone and text or tone and heart and everything over text. Okay. What's your favorite book that you're reading or have ever read?
Oh, that would be a hard one. I think right now I'm reading Robin Sharma. Any of his books are, well, he's one of my greatest mentors. You'll hear a lot of him through me. I love him. Probably my favorite book of all times that was one of the most pivotal books of my life was Happy Pocket Full of Money. It really changed my relationship with money. And it was the catalyst to create wealth beyond my wildest dreams and in fast time. It was unbelievable. So that's a really, really good book if you want to really expand from a wealth perspective.
Okay, cool. And what do you do just for you? Like what fills your cup?
Alone time.
Yeah.
And as a mompreneur, that is a rare thing. So we've got to create the space. So as you thought of that morning and I was expressing lighting candles and the silk robe and the coffee, that's also something I'm very well known for. Lots of my clients go out and buy silk robes after talking to me because there's something really beautiful and divine and feminine. And like that whole queendom comes in when I'm alone. The candles are flickering. I've got my coffee. Everybody's still asleep. And I can think like, what do I want this day to be like? And I greet my day. I'm ahead of my day. And to me, it is the most potent practice I have for across all areas of my life.
Awesome. How many of you are going to go out and get you a silk robe now?
Listen, that's a 2023 thing.
What now?
Yeah, I'm going to start having silk robes because so many people after hearing me want to buy one. I'm like, I'm just going to create some really beautiful silk robes so we all start wearing them and sipping our coffees together in the morning.
Yes. Well, you make sure you make a turquoise one if you do that, because that's my favorite color. So
I love it.
That's such a calm, happy, fun color. Well, thank you so much, Jen. This was really, really awesome. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Tell people how they can connect with you. What's the best way for them to connect with you? And is there anything that you have going on right now, either now or whenever this episode airs, that people would be interested in going to?
I've always got something going on. So that's a for sure. So whenever they hear this, come on over and hang out. Becoming Iconic is my main Instagram page. It's where I pour my heart out. I feel like it is packed full of value every single day. I'm very consistent on there and I love to teach. I also have an agency that supports entrepreneurs. So one of the things that we really need to get over is this whole solopreneurship, that we have to do everything on our own. And what could we do to harmonize our lives if we created more time and space by delegating some tasks? So one of the things I love is branding. I love creating and being a creative director for brands. So we have this amazing agency that supports people across podcasting to branding, to website, to backend, like virtual assisting. And that's Becoming Iconic Agency. And then something quite revolutionary I'm really proud of, it was my childhood dream that I brought to life in 2022, is the Becoming Iconic magazine. So it's available free to download. You can go to Becoming Iconic magazine Instagram. It's also on the Becoming Iconic one, but it is the most incredible magazine. Think of it like Forbes meets Vogue. So it's got lots of business advice, but lots of lifestyle inspiration. It comes out monthly, and you can also get a hard copy if you want to have those glossy pages and read with your silk robe and your coffee in the morning.
You're so good at painting the picture. I'm like, yes to all of that.
Yeah. So obviously we've got lots going on, but it's just from sheer experience and always thinking, I wish I had these things. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, rather than wish for them, why don't we create them? So we've done a really good job, myself and my team. And so there's lots of places to tap in based on what somebody's desiring.
Awesome. Well, y'all make sure you check those things out. We'll put all links to things in the show notes for you, so you'll have that as well. But thanks again, Jen. This was an amazing episode, and I know people are going to put this one on repeat. So thanks so much for being here.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap, friends, for this week's episode of the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. Thank you so much for listening and for following the show. It means so much to me. And listen, friend, sharing is caring. So if you loved this episode and thought of some fellow mompreneurs who could benefit, send them the link. Share this episode or take a screenshot and head on over to Instagram and share and tag me at Martine31Williams. We are connected on Instagram, right? It's where you will get all the fun behind the scenes of my life and business as a mompreneur. Until next time, know that I am believing in you always.